Hi, it's Carolyn here. Before you start listening to this episode, I just wanted to let you know that I'm currently in Switzerland doing my very own and long overdue trip around the country. I'm visiting some of the most popular destinations in Switzerland, as well as a number of lesser known places. And I'm travelling around by both car and train. If you'd like to follow along with my Swiss travels to see where I am and what I'm doing, make sure you follow Holidays to Switzerland on Instagram. That's holidays2 Switzerland. Here I'll be sharing photos and reels as I go, and I'd love you to follow along. Now, settle back and enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Holidays to Switzerland Travel Podcast. Your host is the founder of holidays2switzerland.com and the Switzerland Travel Planning Facebook group, Carolyn Schonefinger. On this podcast, Carolyn will be joined by a variety of guests who share their knowledge and love of the country to help you plan your dream trip to Switzerland.
Hi, and welcome to episode 26 of the podcast. My name's Carolyn, and I'm your host. In past episodes, we've talked about lots of the really popular destinations that visitors head to when they're visiting Switzerland. Today's episode is a little bit different. We're going to talk about a place that probably 99% of visitors to Switzerland have never even heard of, and that place is Biatenberg. Why, you might ask? Well, the great thing about Switzerland is that because it's a small country, you can actually get away and stay in some more, I guess you'd call them remote kind of places, but you're still never far away from the crowds or the main attractions. And Beatenberg is a great example of this. It's really close to Interlaken, but it's got the most stunning views. It's located up on a hill, I guess, on a mountain, looking out over the most gorgeous scenery you could imagine. Now, I've been following the Facebook page of Hotel Gloria, Biatenburg, and the Instagram page as well for quite a little while now. And I thought I've really got to chat to the owners, Jackie and Bernhard, and find out a little bit more about Biatenburg and what they offer at their hotel. They're the owners of the hotel, but not only that, Bernie is the chef. He's worked in 5-star restaurants all around the world, and he's just passionate about serving up the most beautiful meals to his guests, not only those that stay at the hotel, but also to people who come to eat there for lunch or dinner. Jackie has a background in hospitality, and together their passion is to not just welcome people to stay at their hotel, but to give them the most wonderful experience. They actually want to become friends with you. They want you to have the most amazing experience that you've ever had. And if you ever get a chance to look at photos of the location of the hotel, well, you can't help but have a great experience when you visit them. So they've got a really interesting story about how they met, how they ended up running a small hotel in Switzerland, and I'm going to leave it to them to tell you their story. Hi, Jackie and Bernie. Welcome to the show today. Thank you very much for coming on. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. Now, you guys have got a really interesting story. So can you start by telling our listeners how you came to be running a hotel in beautiful Switzerland?
It all started in 1960. My parents bought this place in 1960. And when it only was a little restaurant, a little shop next door, and they worked hard for many years and built it up eventually to a successful restaurant. And then in the early 80s, they did some major renovations and added up the rooms. Like we have 14 nice, beautiful rooms, which, we now have running a lovely hotel.
You're Swiss, and you ended up in Australia for 20 years of your life.
Maybe I should have added that to it, yes.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah. Bernie, you're Swiss, yeah, and Jackie's Australian. How did you two get together, and how did you convince Jackie to move to Switzerland?
We met both in Adelaide, working for Hyatt Hotels, the Hyatt Regency Adelaide, in the 90s or the late 80s, showing our age there. Bernhard was a chef. I was managing outlets and various things, and then I moved over to London for 7 years of my life. And we back at those days when we worked together, if you ever said we'd get married and we'd live in Switzerland and have our own hotel, it would have been no way. But it wasn't until I came back from London after 7.5 years, and we re-met and basically fell in love. And I remember Bernie saying to me, my parents have a hotel in Switzerland. And to cut a long story short, they never thought you would come back.
No.
And the hotel was up for sale. So in a nutshell, he took me over to Switzerland to have a look at this hotel in this small Swiss village above Interlaken. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, what we could do here together with Bernie's food. He's a wonderful chef, and just the location and the structure of the building was amazing. So we have that was 13 years ago now, and we had not a lot of time to pack up our lives in Adelaide and come over here, which was possibly a good thing. Sometimes getting thrown in the deep end is the best thing you can do. So we arrived in Switzerland and had not a lot of time, a few months, to renovate the hotel and sort of rebrand it into our own Hotel Gloria. We were very lucky that it had great. Bernie's parents were just known for their hospitality, and it had a wonderful reputation. So there was a lot of pressure on us to, especially for you, Bernie, wasn't there? The prodigal son is coming back from Australia. What's he going to do? So,
in a way, we probably were lucky. My parents retired 10 years before we actually started, and they were renting the place to several managers for over the 10 years, which they didn't do such a great job, and then which put probably a little bit less pressure on us, because we knew the hotel and the restaurant is sort of rock bottom. We can build it up again, and I suppose we did.
We saw a real opportunity. I think what made us excited was a real opportunity to do some really good fresh food. We sort of got here and dined around a bit, and everyone had the same menu, the same things on their menu, a lot of sort of packaged food, or aromat, which I don't know if you know, Carolyn. Aromat is similar to a chicken salt in Australia, which was going into most foods. And we saw a real opportunity to do really good fresh food, and it's paid off now, hasn't it?
It paid off at the end. At the beginning, as I said,
took a while.
It took a while
to find our tribe.
People are not as open to change here as they are in Australia, so they're more traditional. And at the beginning, we sort of struck a couple of hurdles. People going, what are they doing? We not used to that food. We want, if it doesn't cook our food, we won't go there. But eventually they sort of gotten onto it, and now we
have a lovely following, and people travel to it.
And things changed ever since, the last 10 years.
Oh, that's great. So, Jackie, had you been to Switzerland before that first trip when Bernie brought you over there to look at the hotel?
When I was in London, I'd been to Geneva for conferences and things, but I'd never really been into the Alps, so to speak. So I was quite blown away by, well, Biatenberg has a lake, a forest, the mountains all around. It was everything sort of in one. So it blew my mind. And of course, it meant meeting Bernie's family, who were all waiting to check me out. And
you obviously got the tick of approval then.
Yeah, it was lovely actually. I remember meeting Mum and Dad and just sort of having a very lovely feeling, even though they don't speak a word of English. We somehow, it worked out really well. Lovely people, still are, and it was a good feeling from day one. Yeah, it got harder as time went on, but the beginning was a good feeling.
Oh, that's lovely. So can you tell us a bit about the hotel and its location and what sort of facilities and things you've got? Because I know that a lot of listeners to the podcast have the Jungfrau region on their itinerary. That's where they want to visit. And a lot of people, tend to stay down in Interlaken or some of the other villages like Lauterbrunnen, etc. So what's the point of difference, I guess, with your hotel, and why would they stay in Biatenberg?
We're actually 10 kilometres up the main road from Interlaken. So we are on what Biatenberg is known as the sun terrace of the Bernese Alps. It's a very long village, 12 kilometres long, and we have a lot of sun. So we're up on this beautiful shelf that you look down onto Lake Thun, the famous three, Eiger, Monk and Jungfrau, you can see from every room in our hotel. We are in a small traditional village where traditional life, the farming is still done, the cheese making is still done as they did, 100 years ago. People tend to stay here. The guests that want to get out of sometimes in the summer, Interlaken is really, really busy. And it's people that want to get away from that hecticness and come up and stay in a quiet, relaxing place. So there aren't shops and nightclubs and things here. If you want that, you stay in Interlaken. But here is just pure nature, beautiful hiking. We have the Niederhorn, which is a less known mountain, which also makes it very special because you can go up there and have wonderful walks and not be surrounded with hundreds of people. So it's a really good place to come and just to be and recharge, especially in these current times.
Yeah, and all the rooms in the hotel have a balcony, is that right? And all with those beautiful views.
Yeah, every room is south-facing, which means it faces the mountains, the lake below, private balconies that are private, not sort of open, so you can't see anyone else on your balcony. We're small. We have 14 rooms, so we're very small and personal. The restaurant, Benny is the chef, and he oversees the restaurant. We also have another young Australian chef with us.
Is that a coincidence or planned?
We did some recruiting when we were home last.
Oh, good.
But, so the combination, I guess, the guest feedback that we have is people feel very at home here. They sometimes they say to us, it's not so much like a hotel. It's like a B&B with all the facilities because we also live here, so it's also our home. And we like to we get to know every guest that's here and tailor make itineraries for them on a daily basis depending on the weather. So it's a very personalised service in a small, beautiful place. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you have sort of like a typical clientele or do you get couples, families, friends, big groups, or, when I say big groups that you can accommodate? What's the typical clientele?
Well, it's obviously in these COVID times changed. It's forever changing. 2 years ago, before COVID, we would have in the summertime, which is really from May through till September, the whole world would be here. A lot of Australians that we miss terribly, English, Brazilians, Americans, Europeans, from every corner of the world, they would be here. Through COVID times, we had the lockdown, and it was predominantly, only Swiss for some months, which was also interesting because it was Swiss people that a lot from the French part of Switzerland that had never been to the Bernese Oberland, so they were pleasantly surprised and said they'd come back. And now it's as different countries open, the borders have opened, we've got many more European guests. The Gulf states are starting to travel back. Israel, the Americans are now vaccinated and can come into Switzerland as well. So, but generally very international, and we love that. We love that.
Yeah, that's great. Now we're going to talk about food in a minute because we've got the perfect person here, Bernie, to tell us all about it. But just before we do, you mentioned that Biatenberg is 10 kilometres up the road from Interlaken. But if someone is coming and they don't have a car, is there public transport?
The great thing is Interlaken is such it's a hub for transport. You can get on the train to France, to Germany, to Italy. The guess that it's very easy without a car, sometimes easier. So you would arrive into either Interlaken Ost or Interlaken West station. From Interlaken West, there is a bus, the number 101 bus that goes up to Biatenberg. And we issue our guests with a guest card, which makes the bus travel free. So if people are coming, we like to make contact with them, especially if they've come from as far as Australia. We would make contact with them and send them a guest card in advance so that they can hop on the bus and not have to pay.
That's good to know.
So, and the bus goes once an hour. It's a great bus service. In 13 years, I don't think rain, hail, snow, it's never not travelled down. So it's a really good bus service.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And we've got an on-site car park if people are driving, complimentary on-site car park.
Okay, lovely. All right, so let's talk about food. Bernie, can you tell us a bit about your career? And obviously, we know that you've worked in Australia for a number of years, but how did you, what was the draw to you to become a chef, and whereabouts have you worked around the world?
Well, growing up in a restaurant sort of puts you on the path, I suppose. We used to have to, help even as young teenagers, kids, because we had a very busy restaurant and we just had to help. There was Sundays were particularly busy, and while my friends were doing stuff, we had to stay home, and I at a very young age, I had to do the desserts here. There's a lot of ice cream desserts, coupes as they call them here. Mm-hmm. And that was my job on a Sunday till late in the afternoon. And then usually the day was gone for us, the weekend. And then, following, I suppose, in the footsteps of the family, it made sense. I wasn't, I think with 16, you don't really know what you want. But I was quite happy. I was familiar with the territory, so I started an apprenticeship not far from home. Around the Lake Thun in a similar kind of setup, a bigger restaurant hotel, and we had trained for the 3 years, and then as a chef, you sort of look at like here in Switzerland, particularly, you're trying to do summer seasons in a winter resort, in a summer resorts around the lake, if possible, and then in winter you go to a winter resort like Davos or St. Moritz, Verbier, all these famous places. And I suppose after my apprenticeship, I did one winter season in Davos, and where you have there's a lot of skiing obviously going on. That's also part of the attraction. You can combine that with the with your job, and then summer then at the lakes. I started a couple of years after my apprentice. I started my career in big hotels. I was in Lausanne, which is in the French part of Switzerland, in a very traditional big palace hotel. That was the first time I was in a big brigade, and quite challenging, but it sort of put me on the track, and I kept on following the 5-star hotels around the world. After Lausanne, I had a session about a year in Bermuda, which was very interesting, quite different. But I think it was probably, life experience. It was very beneficial. You learn to deal with different mentalities, different cultures, and it sort of puts the seeds into your system that you want to travel more. I returned home after that, polished up my skills in Switzerland for a few more years, with Hyatt, with another very beautiful hotel here in the region, which was called the Victoria Jungfrau in Interlaken, which is very high end. And from there, I had the travel bug in me again, and was looking for a job. Found a job in Melbourne in the mid '80s, and just took the risk. I booked my ticket, got a contract, and moved to Melbourne for a couple of years. After that, I tried to get back into with Hyatt, because Hyatt gave created some good opportunities to travel. So I found the job at the Hyatt in Adelaide, where I then also met Jackie side to side. We were sort of on the same floor levels, and
but just colleagues back then.
Just colleagues back then, yeah. And so worked another 4 years with Hyatt. Had a couple of transfers also, one to Fiji where I sort of did a training for the local chefs there, which was organized through the management through Hyatt International. Very interesting. I would have had the opportunity to stay in Fiji, but I think by then I fell in love with Australia. I want to go back to Australia. And then after the Hyatt, I sort of felt like I need to do something for myself. You put in a lot of work, a lot of effort, and I thought I could do that for my own good. And I found a little restaurant in Adelaide, North Adelaide, which was called The Man's at the time, and bought that in the early 90s, and then had my own restaurant for the next 15 years. And that was a very interesting time. It was fine dining, which was very challenging at the time, because the cafe scene really started to take off in Australia. And that was tough competition, but
and North Adelaide, really, was a really, really strong sort of cafe culture there.
Very much.
I don't know if it still is, but I know even in the early 2000s that was still really strong there.
We were on Tin Street, just in from 2 houses from Tin Street, and Tin Street and the main O'Connell Street. They were the 2 main roads. And there was a big intersection, and each corner had a cafe. Well, 1 pub and 3 cafes, and we were set back a little bit as a fine dining. So it was challenging. But then we did different food, and we still kind of sort of maintained a certain standard, which we had quite a good following in a more moderate rate than the cafes, but it was a different style. And
but it was your restaurant,
and it was again similar to here. It was personal. It was a lot of effort went into the food, and I think we got the rewards. We had a good following.
Good. So did you then go back to Hyatt? Is that when you met Jackie, or did you just cross paths in Adelaide?
I then already had my restaurant, The Man's, when we sort of met Anna at a reunion, Christmas reunion of somebody organized from the old Hyatt staff, and I think that's when we met first.
After many years we met, and then I went back to London for another 4 or 5 years and never thought anything about it. And then was when I returned from London through friends, or our paths crossed, and
the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. You were needing some marketing help, and I thought, I could do that. And then, here we are in the Alps.
Yeah, a friend of ours, sort of said, he mentioned to me, Jackie's back in town if you need some marketing help, and so I called her straight away, and that's where it all started again.
Good. So here you are now back, or in Switzerland, running the Hotel Restaurant Gloria. What sort of dishes do people find on the menu in the restaurant?
We have quite an international menu. We always, believe it or not, but one of our best-selling dishes is a green Thai curry, which we make fresh from scratch, like we do our own curry paste, and put a lot of effort into that dish, and it's, even though we're in the middle of nowhere in a way, it's one of the best-selling dishes. We also have, obviously got to have some Swiss food for the tourists. We do the Röstis, which is a potato, like probably comparable to a hash brown, but a little bit more upmarket than the hash browns, which we cook with bacon and onions, and we also have beautiful local. We try to work with as many local products as possible, as in fact, because Switzerland just caters for that just beautifully. For example, breakfast. We have a small breakfast, or quite a nice breakfast buffet where we serve butter from the farm. They come in little blocks, and you unwrap them and put them like that on the buffet. It's homemade stuff. We have the milk from the farm. We have the homemade jams, and
the eggs from the neighbours.
Eggs are from the neighbours, so we have a lot of local and unprocessed food, which is lovely to work with. And it's so natural here. It's nothing, like they've always done it. It's not just a trend. It's a lifestyle here. It's how it is. And that makes it even better, because a lot of international guests come and say, oh, this is unreal, and we say, well, it's quite normal.
And we're lucky we have, for example, where the family that they have cows, and we get milk from them, and we also get this beautiful butter and cheese, and they have a little farm shop. So many of our guests go, wow, where can we buy this? So you can also, up here in Biatenburg, buy direct from the farms. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
We also, we have to cater for a broad guest segment, because it's so international. So we, although I wasn't ever keen to do that, but we recently, or last year, introduced a burger, a fresh burger, and I said we're never going to put a burger on the menu unless it's really something special. And so I make my own meat mix. I buy a good quality beef, Swiss quality meat, Swiss quality beef, as they call it here. And we make our own burger which is, really nice and tasty. We have a different bun, sort of a more tasty, crusty bun. We bake our own sauce with it, like we do a smoky mayonnaise and a tomato relish. Everything is homemade, which is quite important for me. I don't like to buy processed food. Everything comes in fresh. We also do a wicked fish and chips here on the mountain, which is done with a light tempura batter. So it's a much lighter dish, as you often find in shops.
And I guess for the tourists all want a cheese fondue.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there a fondue on the menu?
Yes, have to have it. Yeah.
And your cheese mix that you use?
Yeah, we use a special which we call moitié-moitié, which is a French word for half and half, which is a Gruyere, the traditional Gruyere cheese, and some vacherin fribourgeois, which is a vacherin softer, very tasty cheese, which makes a really good blend. It's actually simple, but it makes it just a very creamy, nice consistency. So
with the schnapps,
a little bit of schnapps at the end. Yeah, part of the culture here.
So we have international favourites that we do. I guess Bernie's philosophy is everything's made fresh, local, fresh, nothing's packaged. So international favourites, but also Swiss traditional food that you will get everywhere, but he does it very fresh. We make, you still make your own jus every Monday. There's a huge pot of stock simmering that you reduce down to your very fine sauces, which is the basis of your cooking in our kitchen. The really fine natural sauces or gravies, jus. So something for everybody.
Still based on the sort of old French cuisine. I must say the basics, the French cuisine established that quite well. And we still have a lot of those traditions in the basics of our cuisine.
Okay. And how about desserts? There must be something to do with chocolate, saying you're in Switzerland.
Desserts. Yes, we do quite a lot of chocolate because it's so good here. And also quite reasonable priced. I've compared it with Australia. When you had Swiss chocolate, you paid an arm and a leg for it. Well, here it's just another thing. It's just part of it. It's there. It's available. Even though Switzerland is a very expensive country, it's very well priced. So obviously we have a chocolate mousse. Everything here, the same thing. Everything is homemade. A long-going traditional chocolate and hazelnut pudding, which we serve warm with a chocolate sauce and vanilla ice cream, which is an evergreen, really. And then we also obviously do like panna cottas and things like that, fresh mousses, fresh cakes.
You're doing a Toblerone mousse at the moment.
We're doing a Toblerone mousse at the moment.
Yeah, very Swiss.
That's very Swiss, and it's very good too.
Yeah, I'm sure. And how many guests can you seat in the restaurant in normal times? I'm not sure if there's capacity restrictions at the moment in Switzerland, but
in normal times we have 60 seats inside. And then outside, we have a beautiful terrace. So outside seating that's really lovely. We have a sort of a garden and a terrace. So we can do 60 inside and about 40. But we are small, so we wouldn't be able to cope with a full restaurant inside and outside. So at any one time, I guess our maximum numbers are around 70 in an evening. Okay. So we can't, we're not mass produced, so we time the bookings and everyone has a lovely experience when they come.
Great. So obviously you get a lot of Swiss people and locals that come to eat there as well, I guess, because you said before you've built up that reputation and it's quality food. It's something a bit different. So that's great if you can appeal to the Swiss as well as to the international guests.
Exactly. Yeah, we're very lucky. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So is the hotel and restaurant open all year round?
We generally close in November, which is the end of the summer season. So we close from the 1st of November through to around the 20th of December. So, and then we open in December before Christmas, ready for the winter season, which goes from Christmas time through to about April. And then we just close for a couple of weeks, generally in April. And then we're open, yeah.
Yeah, good. So can people ski from Biatenberg in the winter?
Yeah. Yeah, we have two small ski resorts. There's a huge resort about a 45 minutes drive away from here, but we have really two nice little resorts which are perfectly fine for a day or half a day, for beautiful for families really. We have we have a lot of families with young children which come here because
you ski here.
I used to. Well, we used to go skiing most days. And we have different runs. We got some red and blue runs, and in two different parts. So it's and the views from here are basically what adds to the experience.
Yeah, sure.
It's not just the skiing. We also have a tobogganing run, which is very popular. People love that. It's become very sort of quite famous over the years. A lot of ski, cross
country skiing.
Okay.
Langlauf. Yeah.
Langlauf.
And we have an ice skating rink here in the winter time in the middle of the village, a man-made one. But cross-country skiing for skiers or non-skiers in the winter, it's beautiful. Okay. I don't ski myself. I tried, but that's another story. But you can snowshoe here, winter walking. We have kilometres of like prepared winter hiking tracks in the village. So winter's beautiful here. And the big resorts of Grindelwald, we have many people that will ski here and want a bit of a change. We're about a 50-minute drive, 45-minute drive to Grindelwald. And so two ski areas here that are not as crowded, smaller, intimate, and beautiful views. So, yeah.
Oh, lovely. Okay. And you mentioned earlier lots of lovely hikes in the summer as well. Is that sort of one of the main draw cards for people to come and hike and get those spectacular views?
People come here for the views and the simplicity of where we are. I guess Biatenberg's a really good base. You're down in Interlaken on the bus in 20 minutes. People come here, for the hiking, the scenery. Mountain biking is also it's popular here. Paragliding and hang gliding, they all take off from our village. And but the draw card is the beauty, the views, the hiking, just being in a traditional.
It's about 160 kilometres of hiking just here in our village.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then there's, within half an hour by car, there's so much hiking, you can't do it all unless you stay for several months.
I guess the beauty of staying somewhere like Biatenberg too is that you're close enough to go to those other more, famous, I guess, tourist attractions, but then you can come back and you're away from the crowds and you've just got that tranquility,
exactly.
and you can really feel like you've had a relaxing break.
Really.
Mm-hmm. And we have our favourite spots on our days off. We always try and explore new places. We have our favourite places, but we're still experiencing more and finding more. But we tend to. We have our own special places that we would not advertise because we don't want, thousands of people knowing about them. So we do have a sort of a tailor-made approach depending on the guests and what they're after. We sort of set them up at the beginning of each day and make sure that they head in the right direction and find something.
Whisper a few little secrets in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And as you said before, everything is so close. You really, if you have your own car, or if you need to take public transport, everything is accessible as well. But with a private car, you can drive straight to the spot and then go for your walks, and everything is within 30 to 60 minutes, and there's so many places. We could have somebody here for 2 weeks. We can send them to a different place every day where it's different but nice. It's just equally nice, but they see something completely different, and which makes it really interesting.
And I think it's important to say right from our front door, you get onto hiking tracks. So you just step out the front door and there's trails there.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like the ideal place to stay for anyone who's heading to Interlaken or that area.
Yeah.
Thank you very much both for joining me and telling me all about your wonderful hotel and restaurant, and I'll sure to look you up when I am able to travel there eventually one of these days.
I hope so. Yeah.
So no, thanks for having us, Caroline. It's been lovely to talk to you. And we really do love having Aussies come and see us, pass by, stay with us. So we hope things change soon.
Yeah. We've all got our fingers crossed. Now, in the show notes for the episode, I'll put the link to your hotel, which is hotel-gloria.ch for anyone listening. And also I'll put a link to your Instagram page, which I follow, and you're always putting beautiful photos on there, making me very jealous of those wonderful views that you're getting, and the lovely cocktails and the delicious meals that you post photos of. So I'm sure lots of other people will like to follow that as well. So that'll all be included in the show notes for this episode, which will be at holidaystoswitzerland.com/episode 26.
Beautiful.
Thanks again, Bernie and Jackie, and hopefully you'll be contacted by lots of our listeners who are keen to come and visit you.
Hope so. Yeah, thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Very happy.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wow. Are you as keen to get to Hotel Gloria in Biatenberg as I am? Do yourself a favour and go on to their Instagram page and check out some of the photos that they share. And that's Hotel Gloria Switzerland. You'll be amazed, and you'll definitely be planning to visit either to stay or for a meal when you visit Switzerland. As I said earlier, I think that's the great thing. You can still be close to all the attractions of the Jungfrau region without staying in one of the busier or more popular towns. So if you're the sort of person who likes to see the sights during the day, but then get away and stay somewhere quieter and have that real homely family kind of experience where you're staying, this is definitely the spot for you to go. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this episode useful or interesting. And if you enjoyed it, I'd really be appreciative if you would leave a review on your favourite podcast app. And be sure to subscribe so you get updates next time we put out an episode.
Thank you so much for listening. For more great resources on planning a trip to Switzerland, make sure you visit holidaysto-switzerland.com, where you'll find trip planning tips, destination guides, information on transport, including Swiss rail passes, and much more. You're also encouraged to join the Switzerland Travel Planning Group on Facebook, where you can ask questions and chat to other past and future travellers to Switzerland. You'll find show notes from today's episode at holidaysto-switzerland.com/podcast, and be sure to subscribe to the Holidays to Switzerland Travel podcast so you never miss an episode.